Hello, Ann. This is Alex, the webcaster. You can still hear us and see us?
Yep, everything looks good. Would you be able to confirm whether Elizabeth Deetston Olson is in the room or not?
Not yet.
Okay, all right, she's on WebEx.
Yeah, I'm on
Oh,
WebEx.
yes, WebEx.
Perfect. Great, thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Good morning, this is the moderator. We are going to be starting just a little late. We are still getting everything arranged in the room. Please be patient. Thank you. Good morning, this is the moderator. We are awaiting the last few board members and getting settled in the room. We thank you for your patience. The meeting will begin soon.
Once again, good morning, everyone. Thanks everyone for being here today. Thank you for joining us at the Dental Hygiene Board. Can everybody hear me? Is it okay? Okay, sorry. My name is Sonia P. Hansen, and I'm acting president for the Dental Hygiene Board today. I would like to ask to please turn your cell phones off so there's no decrease of disturbance. There's no disturbance in the room. And additionally, I would like to ask when the board members or staff are not speaking, please remain muted to microphone to eliminate any interference on the side dialogue. We started our meeting right now at 9:08 on March 22nd. For those participating remotely, please log on into the WebEx website location provided on the posted agenda at the meeting. Instructions to connect to the meeting are provided with the meeting materials. The preferred audio connection is via telephone conference and not the microphone and the speakers in your computer. The phone and access code are provided as part of the connection to the meeting. The meeting is also being webcast on the DCA link provided on the agenda. There is no interaction throughout the webcasting and it's only for viewing purpose. This is an official business of the meeting of the Dental Hygiene Board. Once the meeting commences, we'll proceed through the items are listed on the agenda. The president has the discretion to take any items out of the order as warrant. The schedule has been worked for breaks, one at 10:30 with 15 minutes break, one at 12 for lunch, resuming for 1 hour, and one at 2 for 15 minutes if needed to relieve time. I would like to announce that there is no closed session for the meeting and it's only indicated on the agenda as a placeholder. The board welcomes the public comments of any of the agenda and is the board intent to ask the public for comments prior to the board enacting on the agenda item. However, the board asks the public comments to pertain to the current agenda item only as being discussed during the meeting. Public comment is not intended to initiate discussion on the topics, nor is to relate it to the agenda. But the opportunity to the public to express their opinions to the board and considerations. Questions asked during the public comment may or may not be answered. Time of the board discretion, especially if the question pertains to an item not on the agenda, where the board may not discuss it. Enforcement inquiries will not be heard and should be directly to the staff. The board does provide opportunity to the public comment on anything that is not in the meeting agenda, which is normally agenda item 2. I would like to ask the DCA moderator, please explain to the public how the comments will be taken during the WebEx meeting. Moderator, please open the QA code. Oh,
Thank you.
sorry about that.
This is the moderator. When the public comment periods open, we will display instructions on the screen. We are utilizing the hand raise feature, and that is seen at the bottom of your WebEx screen with a small hand icon. Click that to raise your hand. Our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. If for some reason that does not work, there will be a question mark icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen, and you may click that, type the word comment into the text box, and click send. Each public comment will be allowed 2 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning. We will time comments in the room as well and announce time up. These are the instructions for public comment.
Thank you, moderator.
You're
Also,
welcome.
Executive Officer Anthony Thom has an announcement to make in regarding to the meeting, logistics, and the building and safety reasons for the restrooms locations.
Good morning. I'm Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. Just 2 brief announcements. One is for people unfamiliar with our building, the bathrooms are located. 2 small ones are right across the hall outside of the hearing room. And there's 2 larger bathrooms. If you go across the atrium to the left and straight down that hallway, there's bathrooms halfway down there. The other announcement is in case we need to evacuate this room and the building. If you can imagine this building being a cross and each point of the cross is an exit, the preferred method for us to leave is going out the back doors, make a right, and out to the parking lot. So that's just in case if we need to evacuate. So thank you.
And now I would like to call the meeting in order and ask Board Secretary Natalie Lolali Tribal Arwa to please call the roll.
This is Lolly Agarwal, and I will now call the roll. Julie Algener,
Present.
Sonia Pat Hansen,
Present.
Sherman King, Michael Long, Justin Matthews,
Present.
Joanne Pacheco,
Present.
Sridevi Pinala, Lolly Agarwal, present. A quorum has been established.
Thank you, Natalie. Order has now been established. Now we can move into agenda number 2, which is public comments. The board may not discuss any or act any matters raised during the public comments section that is not included in the agenda, except whatever to decide to place the matter on the agenda for future meetings. Are there any public comments? And I would like to ask the moderator to please open the WebEx and the QA code for the future.
Thank you. This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on an item that is not already on the agenda, you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. That's typically at the bottom of your WebEx screen. If you're on a mobile device, it may be behind the 3-dot other options. And if you are a call-in user, you may press *3 to raise your hand. Are there any comments for items that are not already on the agenda? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that public comment feature?
Please go ahead and close that feature.
Thank you.
Moving to agenda number 3, this is my report. I want to mention that I was recently, as an active president, due to Dr. Carmen not being able to be reestablished in the board. I have attended few training meetings, one recently for a president training meeting, which Anthony and I have shared the meeting, as well have maintained communication with Anthony on a weekly basis to keep up with agenda items, any other items related to the board. I have also worked with cases with Ambrose and having to be moved cases forward so we can go forward into a case process. Other than that, that is my report for as of right now. Are there any public comments? See none. Moving to, are there any WebEx comments?
This is the moderator. If anyone has a comment on the board president's report, you can raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hands. Any comments on the president's report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment?
DCA, please do call.
Thank you.
Moving to agenda number 4, item for update on the Department of Consumer Affairs DCA executive staff. I'm going to ask Judy Ruccelli. Did I say Ruccelli? Sorry about that. Or to please provide us with a report.
How's this? Everyone can hear me? Perfect. Well, good morning, Vice President Hanson, and board members. My name is Judy Bucciarelli from the California Department of Consumer Affairs, Board and Bureau Relations. And thank you for the opportunity to join me today. I have a few topics I'll be covering today. The first one being the fire response to the Southern California wildfires. On January 29th, Governor Newsom released Executive Order N-1525, providing quick recovery relief for local businesses by deferring renewal fees and waiving other fees for DCA licensees in the Los Angeles wildfire areas. Specific DCA provisions included the following. DCA licensees whose licenses expire between January 1st and July 1, 2025, will be granted a one-year extension to pay their renewal fees if their business or residence address is in certain zip codes impacted by the fires. Licensees will still need to renew their license, but their fees will be postponed for 1 year. In addition, duplicate or replacement licenses, including wall certificates, will be provided free of charge until January 7th, 2026, and delinquency fees are suspended until July 1, 2025 for those in the impacted areas. DCA met with board and bureau leadership on January 29th to discuss the executive order and its implementation. DCA provided messaging to the boards and bureaus for dissemination to impacted licensees, as well as consistent messaging for use on all DCA board and bureau websites. Boards and bureaus have shared the executive order and fee deferral opportunity with their stakeholders. We sincerely appreciate the quick and personal outreach by the boards and bureaus to impacted licensees. Each DCA board and bureau website was updated with information for individuals impacted by the fires. DCA's Office of Information Services IT team also developed landing pages for all online databases, so those going through the renewal process will receive information regarding the fee deferral when going to renew their license online. DCA has created a disaster help center webpage accessible at www.dca.ca.gov that includes information on the executive order, frequently asked questions, and other important resources that may be helpful to licensees and survivors as they navigate the rebuilding process. Additionally, DCA has a toll-free number, which is 1-800-799-8314, and email cafires@dca.ca.gov, which are both available for fire survivors needing assistance. We are grateful to the governor for this opportunity to assist our licensees in their time of unprecedented need. A special thank you to DCA board and bureau leadership for their continued partnership and commitment to help all survivors. Next, Governor Newsom released his proposed 2025-26 state budget on January 10th. In addition, DCA's vacancy reduction and government efficiency plans were approved by the Department of Finance and may be official in the spring revisions. The governor remains committed to funding resources to address California's housing and homelessness crisis. Included in the governor's proposed budget is the creation of a dedicated California Housing and Homeless Agency. The Department of Consumer Affairs and other regulators currently under the Business and Consumer Services and Housing Agency would form a consumer protection agency. This is an extraordinary opportunity for DCA to better align with other consumer protection entities as one consumer protection agency. With the Consumer Protection Agency Secretary within the governor's cabinet, this is an exciting opportunity that will only strengthen our mission, momentum, and delivery of services to California. The governor's reorganization proposal will be reviewed by the nonpartisan Little Hoover Commission and the legislature in the spring. As more information is available, DCA will continue to keep board and bureau leadership updated. Next, I have an update on hybrid telework transition. On March 3rd, Governor Newsom issued an executive order requiring all state agencies and departments to update their hybrid telework policies for employees and increase from 2 to 4 days in the office per week beginning on July 1st, 2025. On March 13th, the California Department of Human Resources issued guidance on implementation of the executive order. The guidance provides defined parameters for when agencies and departments can make case-by-case exceptions to the 4-day in-office minimum requirement. DCA is working closely with the Business and Consumer Services Housing Agency on next steps and will be meeting next week to discuss this transition with board and bureau leadership. And my last update is in regards to the board and bureau relations team. I'd like to share that Yvonne Durantes served as Assistant Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations since October of 2022. On December 6th, the governor appointed Yvonne as the Assistant Deputy Director of Legislative and Government Affairs at the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. Her last day with DCA was on December 31st. Also, Melissa Gear was also appointed by the governor as Deputy Director of Legislative and Governmental Affairs at the Department of Healthcare Access and Information on February 14th. She has been with DCA since September of 2022. Her last day with the department was February 28th. We appreciate Melissa and Yvonne's dedication to the department and wish them well in their new roles. Moving forward, any questions or matters that you may need assistance with should be sent to BBR's email at memberrelations@dca.ca.gov. This concludes today's DCA update. I would like to thank board staff for their continued hard work and express thanks to you, the board members, for your dedicated service on behalf of California consumers. I appreciate your time this morning, and I'll turn the floor back to Vice President Hansen and welcome any questions from the board.
Thank you so much, Julie, for updating us. It was fantastic to hear all the news. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
At this point, any other public comments? Any board member comments? Go ahead.
Good morning, Judy.
Good morning.
I understand that the DCA is updating the boards and bureau websites for more uniformity. Could you give us an update on the progress that's being made on the websites?
That is a very nice inquiry, and I am not prepared to do that with you today. So if you would like that update, Anthony, do you want to add something?
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. Yeah, we're in constant communication with the department. And once they get everything situated as far as what the parameters are in the OIS team, then they will convey that to us. I'll be able to update the board.
Thank you.
Julie, go ahead.
Hi, Judy. I'm Julie Elginer. I'm a new public member appointed by Speaker Rivas. I just wanted to make 2 quick comments. The first is thank you for your efforts to ensure that those impacted by the wildfires have some grace. I live in Southern California, and I personally know 15 families that lost their homes and or were displaced. And so the level of devastation, both from a personal and business standpoint, is hard to be fathomed. So I just want to extend my sincere gratitude to you, to the DCA team, and to all the boards and bureaus as they make some accommodations for those people.
Of course.
The second is I'm curious to learn more about this reorg that's happening, specifically around the Consumer Protection Agency. Does DCA have a projected org chart that is published?
That's a good question. Anthony, could you help me with this?
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. It's something that we can look into. I haven't looked into it in quite a while. It may either be on the DCA website itself somewhere, or it could be we have a internal intranet and it could be there as well. If you would like a copy, I can inquire with the department.
I would. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions.
Are there any other comments? Are there any public comments? None, seeing none. Moving to DCA, would you please open the WebEx QA forum, please?
Thank you. This is the moderator. If anyone has any comments on the DCA update, you may raise your hand by clicking on that hand icon, or you may, and our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. Any comments on the DCA update? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close public comment?
DCA moderator, please do close it.
Thank you.
Moving to agenda number 5, update from the Dental Board, California. We'll ask Dr. Stephen Chen, President of the Dental Board, to provide us with a report. Thank you, Dr. Chen.
Oh, good morning, good morning, good morning. Sun's out, sky's blue, sorta. Yes, I am, I have had the great fortune of having my colleagues on the Dental Board of California elect me as president for 2025, so thank you for that. And thank you for the invitation to address this board. So first of all, we'd like to thank Executive Officer Lum and the members of the board for offering this chance to interact with this board. Anthony and I have had many interactions over the last, 2 terms that I've been on the board. So thank you. We'd also like to thank and congratulate Joanne Pacheco. Joanne and I have had, oh my goodness, in her 2 terms, multiple interactions, and we've gone through a lot of learning together. She, I believe, is the first hygienist to have been president of the dental board. And it happened right after the onset of the pandemic. So she had a lot of crisis management to deal with. And we have mixed emotions where the board of the Dental Board of California has evolved, where the hygienist position evolved to another RDA position. But she brings a lot of experiences in how things work in government, which is pretty complicated. The Dental Board, so thank you, Joanne. Thank you for the experiences. The Dental Board, in its most recent meeting, was February 6th and 7th. Our next board meeting will be on the 14th and 15th in Anaheim. The board's executive officer, Tracy Montez, is retiring, or she will be retired. She has brought a lot of organizational upgrades to the workings of our board and a lot of relationships in any organization. It's about relationships. She's going to be missed. Christy Bell is the interim executive officer while we go through a transition. And the board now is actively recruiting for a more permanent executive officer. At the February board meeting, there were proposed regulations for the minimum standards of infection control, and they received many comments on there. The item was sent back to a working group to address the comments, and we'll be bringing this back to the board at the May meeting. Board continues to process licensing applications within its statutory mandates, address access to care, and be responsive to the consumers of dental services. In the May and November meeting, we'll be creating our strategic plan for this year. The current strategic plan expires at the end of 2025. And we look forward to our continued partnership with the Dental Hygiene Board, especially as we continue to update the board's dental assisting regulations. And those are the comments from the dental board. So thank you again for inviting us.
Thank you, Dr. Chan, for providing us with that wonderful information today. And thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any public comments?
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. I want to say thank you to President Chan as well, because with us working with the dental board, I think we've continued to formulate a good cooperation between our two boards. And I hope that continues long into the future. So thank you.
I also want to raise on the sentiment as well. I think it's a great collaboration to work together. So thank you for bringing you down.
Thank you.
Yes. Moving forward, are there any public comments? Are there any board member comments? DCA moderator, would you please open the facilitate the QA feature?
Certainly, this is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the dental board update, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. Our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hands. Each speaker will have 2 minutes with a 30-second warning. Any comments on the dental board report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close public comment?
DCA, go ahead and close that, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chan.
Thank you. We wish this board well.
Thank you. Agenda item number 6, moving forward to that, discussing impossible actions to approve the November 15, 2024 full board meetings. I will ask right now to, are there any board members' remissions or revisions that it needs to be amended for the November 15, 2024 meetings? Go ahead, Julie.
I have one. I was not at the meeting because I was recently appointed, but I do want to note that I think there is a date issue on, I believe it's page 55. So let me pull it up quickly. There is a reference to, goodness.
Julie, I just been informed that that was November 16th.
I'm sorry?
I was just informed by Dr. Petty that that was November 16th.
Sorry, yes, in the meeting minutes, and I need to find it again, there is a reference to a vote that occurred on November 16th. It says 2025, not 2024. So I'm trying to locate where that was because it was noted incorrectly. Yes, same thing. Let me find it.
Yeah, just for clarity, we're looking at November 15th meeting minutes.
It is, may I? It is on page 54, and it is regarding the November 15th date. The statement reads, Dr. Petty clarified that the language in 1915.1 offered from the board meeting materials from the Ledger Committee voted on Friday, November 15th, 2025. That should be 2024.
I think the November 16th you were looking at was on page 25 of the November 15th, 2024 minutes. It says EO Lum responded that his presentation tomorrow, November 16th, 2025 will help clarify.
Correct.
Is that
There,
the one you were looking for?
there were two, yes.
Okay.
So thank you for noting the other one. There's just a date incorrect.
Thank you, Julie. Are there any other board member comments? Are there any public comments? Seeing none, DCA moderator, would you open the QA facilitated code?
This is the moderator. If you have any comments on the motion to approve the November 15th, 2024 minutes, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, and our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. Any comments on the November 15th minutes? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
DCA moderator, please do close the feature.
Thank you.
Moving forward, we need to make a motion to approve the November 15, 2024 full board meetings. I would ask Secretary Nanelli Yali Tribal Arwal to please call a roll and say the motion. Well, sorry about that. We're going to make a motion to approve the board meetings.
Shri Ponala, I move to approve the November 15th, 2024 full board meeting minutes.
Long, second.
Are there any board member discussion? See none? I will ask DCA moderator, please open the WebEx QA feature.
If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, and call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. Any comments on the motion? I do not see requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment?
DCA, please do so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I will ask Secretary Nellie Lilly Tribal Arwal to please take a vote on the agenda.
This is Lolly Agarwal. I will now call the roll. Julie Algener,
Abstain.
Sonia Pat Hudson,
A.
Sherman King,
Abstain.
Michael Long,
Aye.
Justin Matthews,
Aye.
Joanne Pacheco,
Abstain since I was not present at that meeting.
Debbie Panola, Nalini Lolly Triple I. Quorum has been established. I mean, the minutes have been, motion is approved.
Now motion is passed. Moving to agenda number 7, discussion and possible action to approve November 16th, 2024 full board meeting agenda. Are there any motions to the agenda?
Yes, this is Michael Long. There's a typo. Needs to be corrected.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer.
Yes.
Can we have a motion to approve these before we go into discussion? Thank you. Motion go for.
This is Michael Long. I move to approve the November 16th, 2024 full board meeting minutes.
This is Matthews. I second.
Now we'll go into discussion. Are there any discussions about the meetings?
Okay, I would like to mention a typo on page 22 of the board meetings. sentence that starts with, I sent this email to Dr. Petty last night. Word rations should be ratios.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. Can I request that when we're going through, especially for the public and people that are following along, that we mention the page numbers so that way everybody knows
Page
where we're
number
at.
22.
Thank you.
This reference to page number 55 in the March 2025 meeting material, but it's page 22 of the meeting minutes from November 22nd. The sentence starting subsequent discussion later in the meeting after returning to legislative and regulatory committee agenda. It's just a typo.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. So just for clarification, you're talking about that rations
Correct.
instead of ratios?
Correct.
Okay, we'll get that corrected. Thank you.
Are there any other discussions? Are there any public comments? Seeing none, moving to DCA moderator, would you facilitate the QA code, please?
Certainly. If anyone would like to make a comment on the November 16th, 2024 minutes, aside from the edit noted previously, you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. Any additional comments on the November 16th, 2024 meeting minutes? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Thank you, DCA moderator. You can close that. Thank you. Now we'll ask Secretary Nellie Lily Arwell to please take a call roll.
Trustees Lolly Agarwal, Julie Algener,
Abstain.
Sonia Pat Hapson,
Aye.
Sherman King,
Abstain.
Michael Long,
Aye.
Justin Matthews, Joanne Pacheco,
Abstain.
Sridevi Pannala, Lolly Agarwal, aye. The motion has passed.
Thank you so much. The motion has been passed. Moving to agenda number 8. Now we'll move to an elections of new 2025 board officers. I will leave this to Executive Officer Anthony Lum.
This is Executive Officer Anthony Lum for the agenda item for election of officers. Just to clarify, this will depend on how the board would like to proceed on this. What occurred was that our prior president, who was voted in November, unfortunately was not reappointed in January after her term expired at the end of December. So as such, our vice president, Ed Hansen, is in the acting position right now. And our member guidelines say that at the subsequent meeting, after the president is unavailable, a new election would occur. So the parameters of this can go 2 different ways. One, we can just nominate and vote on a president, and then that would refill that vacant position. However, just as an example, if the nomination for the vice president to be president comes to fruition, then we would have to then nominate and vote on a new vice president. So it's up to the board as how they want to nominate individuals, and we can proceed with the election after that is done. So are there any nominations for board president?
This is Michael Long. I move for the board to accept the nomination of Joanne Pacheco for president 2025.
A second. Matthews, second.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, shall we take a vote? Oh, I'm sorry, public comment first. Is there any in-person public comment on the nomination of Joanne Pacheco to assume the president's role, the Dental Hygiene Board? Seeing none. DCA moderator, can you open up the WebEx links for public comment on the election of our board president?
Certainly. If anyone would like to make a comment on the nomination for president, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, and our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hands. Any comment on the president nomination? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
I don't do this very often, so I forgot. I skipped one little part. I have to ask Joanne Pacheco if she accepts the nomination. Ah, gee.
I accept.
Thank you. I have ink on my face now. I'd like to ask Board Secretary Lolly Aguilar to take the vote on the nomination for Joanne Pacheco as our new president.
This is Lolly Agarwal, Julie Algener,
Aye.
Tanya Pat Hansen,
Aye.
Herman King,
Aye.
Michael Long,
Aye.
Justin Matthews,
Aye.
Joanne.
Aye.
Sridevi Pannala. Aye. Lolly Agarwal. Aye. This motion has passed. Welcome.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Joanne. Welcome to the board as well.
Thank you.
We excited to have you.
Thank you.
Moving to agenda number 9, Executive Officers Report.
Good afternoon, Executive Officer Anthony Lund. You're not tired of hearing about me all. To provide my executive officer's report. First item is about personnel, and we currently have 2 vacant positions and have recently revised both duty statements to fit our needs and have 1 position scheduled for interviews next week. The second position will be advertising for hiring soon. And just to make sure that we get as fully staffed as we can, we're both Albert and I are working on that expeditiously. As mentioned from the DCA report, the governor's reduction plan that was completed last year resulted in us losing 1 position. So we had 15, now we're down to 14. In regards to board members, with the recent appointments of Julie Algener and Joanne Pacheco to the board, we currently have 1 vacant board member position remaining. It's a public member position appointed by the Senate Rules Committee, and because the new legislative session recently started and staff have been working hard to prepare for this meeting, I haven't had a chance to reach out to the committee about a possible appointment timeline. The next item is our budget. And the latest expenditure projection, budget expenditure, revenue, and fund condition reports are in today's meeting materials on pages 67 through 75 for your review. These reports show totals from fiscal month 7, which are expenses captured through January 2025. I did receive an updated report. However, I received it too late to put it in the meeting materials. So my report will be based upon those numbers. The first one is the expenditure report, which is on pages 67 to 69. And we spent approximately 55% or 1.6 million of our annual budget. And we continue to be selective and efficient with our spending. On page 70 is our expenditure projection report for anticipated expenses through the rest of this year. And it's projected that we'll have roughly 11.5% or about $340,000 of our budget remaining at year end. The next report is our revenue report, and that's on pages 71 to 73, and shows the amount of revenue the board has received through the fiscal month 7, which is approximately 2.4 million. If projected out, we should be on track to receive the anticipated amount of revenue by year end at roughly 3.5 million. On page 74 is our fund condition report, which is our quote savings account by fiscal year. This shows the amount of dollars available in the fund to show the fiscal health of our program. The fund continues to be in good standing moving forward with approximately 4.5 million in the fund this year. Are there any questions on the budget reports?
Hi, this is Julie Elginer, and I do have a quick question on page 68 of our board packet, and this is in regards to general expenses. Sorry, it's the next page. Page 69. I'm curious about one of the line items, which was for the Attorney General. It looked like the budget of 47,000 and year-to-date 106,000 with a delta of 59,000. I'm curious, given that increased expenses this year, if in next year's budget, you have increased the projection spent through the Attorney General's office, or have you held that projection flat for the next year?
Just FYI for reports like this, we don't have the flexibility to up and down the budget every year, as the budget process is a little more complex than that. However, in looking at particular specific line items like this, you'll see throughout the reports that some of them we may overexpend, and the important part is the actual bottom line. So long as we are in the black on the bottom line, we can move funds around within our budget, allotted budget, to cover expenses. Now, specifically for the AG line item, because I was in communication with the AG's office, they have the same concern. They were looking at how much we actually had budgeted for this line item and whether we would be able to cover the expense. And with us having extra funds in our annual budget, we do have the monies for that. And just to reassure the board, if we do have, say, a case that has extensive expenses over our budgeted line item massively, there are available funds that we can use to cover those expenses. And the fiscal month 7 total is probably 2/3, I would say, about the cost that the AG is projecting for us. So we will have a pretty big deficit in that line item. But like I said, the overall total is what's important as far as our budget being in the black or the red.
Okay, thank you. And my next comment is I want to commend the board for the months in reserve, specifically over 16 months in reserve. That's difficult to accomplish, and I want to just let you know that I see that and I very much appreciate it. And my last comment is, as a new public board member, I do have expertise in both budget development and in analyzing financial statements. And so to the extent that I can be a resource for you, I want to make sure that you know I'm available.
Thank you for that offer, Julie. Appreciate it. Okay. Okay, moving on page 75 is a PowerPoint slide about the state budget process. And this is, believe me, a very frosting overview for those individuals who are unaware of how this process goes. I thought I'd just throw this in just to help kind of educate people that may not know about this whole process. So what occurs in the budget process, and I worked in DCA budgets for 2 years and did this whole process within DCA. And what we do is what we did at that time and probably still do is up through December of the preceding year, the Department of Consumer Affairs Budget Office works with the Department of Finance to create a draft report of all DCA programs to include additional expenditures or reductions depending on each program's specific needs. What occurs then is this is just one entity. Keep that in mind. It's not the entire state. It's just DCA that I'm familiar with. So then what happens at the Department of Finance is they assemble all state government programs' budgetary needs into a draft budget report for the governor to release by January 10th for the next fiscal year. This is an initial draft as changes will occur. In the meantime, the legislature is afforded the opportunity to work with the governor's office on the budget, and by May 14th of each year, the governor releases the revised budget proposal called the May revision, containing changes that have been agreed upon between the governor and the legislature. After that occurs, the legislature then deliberates on the revised budget and must approve and pass a new balanced budget by June 15th of each year to begin implementation as of July 1st of the following fiscal year, or forfeit their pay until the budget is passed, pursuant to Proposition 25 in 2010. Then it goes to the governor for his approval and, like I said, is enacted as of July 1st. And just FYI for everybody, when people are talking about the distinguished differences between the calendar year, which everybody is aware of, and the fiscal year, the state's fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 20th. And the slide in the materials just shows a general overview of how that process works. Are there any questions on the budget process that I could potentially answer? On to the next item. And this is administration of the Dental Hygiene Board. I attended the dental board's February 6th to 7th, 2025 board meetings through WebEx since I was sick at the time. And sorry, Dr. Chan, I didn't get to congratulate you in person. So I did have Albert Law, my assistant executive officer, attend in person, however, so he could take some notes for me and fill me in on what occurred. And the main issue of concern was the infection control regulations that need revision. Since we've been working intensely with the dental board on those, we look forward to the continued collaboration with them. I participated in the Department of Consumer Affairs December 2024 leadership and DCA directors quarterly meetings where current issues affecting programs were discussed. I believe there's another one coming up next week, and I look forward to that meeting as well. I communicated with several legislative staffers throughout January and February to obtain an author for the board's approved statutory language from our November meeting prior to the bill deadline without success. As explained by ledge staffers, this year is more complex than previous years because of the combination of a greater legislative need and the governor's order reducing the number of bills proposed by each legislator from 50 to 35. So they didn't have as many options to have additional legislation available to them. They explained that our proposed language is valid and has great intent, but contains subjects that they're not focused on at the current time. I'm still working to possibly get some of the approved language into legislation this year through amendments, but that's still to be determined. I arranged to update the laws and regulations book for 2025 and beautify the new strategic plan that the board passed to be presentable on the website. Both will be posted on the website soon, and I want to thank DCA's publications, design, and editing team who helped complete the projects. As we heard in the Department of Consumer Affairs update, the governor recently issued a new executive order, N-22-25, which requires staff to return to the office a minimum of 4 days per week, from 2 days per week, effective July 1st, 2025. This applies to state employees living within a 50-mile radius of the office, with exceptions considered for staff in a case-by-case basis. You may have seen in the news the state worker protests over this executive order, but I anticipated it would occur at some point because of the monies being spent on leases, maintenance, and equipment, and the fact that the private sector is returning to the office as well. I've also begun to research topics for the board's next newsletter, which will be the Spring/Summer 2025 edition. I'd like to ask if any board members have any ideas or information that they'd like to include in the newsletter, please let me know. I was recently informed that the dates for our November 2025 meetings, which is November 14th to 15th, 2025, conflicts with some members' schedules. And since this issue is not on today's agenda, I would ask the member to add the issue for a future agenda item later in the meeting to be presented and voted upon at the July 2025 board meeting. Staff will work with members to identify appropriate late October to November-ish meeting dates to be considered in July. To update the board as well on the Southern California fires, with the provisions implemented, extending the license renewal fees for a year, we, in talking with staff, we haven't had a huge effect from the fires to this point, and hopefully, the licensees weren't severely affected from them. I also wanted to address the future agenda items that were presented at our last meeting. And the first one is a question that arose was who determines scope of practice when we have questions here at the board. And what we do in paralleling it with our enforcement cases, we rely on our subject matter experts who are licensees and educators and the like to review our cases because the only expert that we have on staff is Dr. Adina Petty, and everybody else is not licensed. So we rely on the expertise of licensees that we contract out with to provide those in-depth definitions as far as scope of practice is concerned. A second item that came up was potential use of Botox for dental hygienists. And at the current time, Botox use is not within the scope of practice for dental hygienists, and we'll just leave it at that. If they want to pursue something like that, they have to get a legislative change for this advanced scope. The third item was in regards to overview of CE providers, especially for the courses that the board requires. And I worked at a board that took this endeavor on, and it was a huge, huge project. And it was a lengthy project at that. Staff resources and to be able to do this type of review are immense. And at this time, we just don't have the resources or staff to do it. But it is something where we rely on the dental board to approve providers. And I understand that the focus was the content within each provider's coursework. However, I think it would make more impact if the participants or entities that promote those CE courses provide input to that provider. I think that would have more impact than from us to say, you need to update your laws and regulations to the current standards, or your infection control needs to be at the current standards, or et cetera, something like that. This next one, I just threw in this last one because we had it at public comment yesterday for a future agenda item, and that was in regards to the ITR course being available as a CE course. The board has no control on who offers this course. They're offered from private entities or educational institutions, and just wanted to let that licensee who made that comment know that the board does not control those things. Outside entities create these programs, and they just have to stick to our parameters in order to offer it. So with that, are there any questions on my administrative portion?
I do. This is Michael Long. I want to let you know that I got a lot of positive feedback on our newsletter. So thank you for publishing that. Is the goal to have 2 newsletters a year then?
Yes, the last newsletter that we put out, that was our first one in a number of years. And my goal to initially start up and ramp up the newsletter again is to do 2 per year. And then in the future, as the need arises, we may increase that to 3 and 4. Maybe I would love to see a quarterly newsletter. It may not be as in depth, but or lengthy, but that would be the ultimate goal.
And as a board member, I was able to submit a article to you on enforcement actions for hygienists. So I would encourage other board members to work with EOLUM on sharing information that we can get out to the public and to the licensees. Also, regarding the website, I noticed that the strategic plan hasn't been updated.
Correct. Yeah, the new strategic plan that we've been working on over the past year plus, basically at the current time, it was just basic words, and that's all it was. So that's where I went to DCA to have them work on it, add some color, add some life to it before we post it on the website. And that has been finalized and has been requested to be posted, I believe, by next week.
And one other thing, when I was reviewing the board member guidelines and procedural manual, let's pull that up. Under the acronym section, it seems like we need to add under license, the ITR and the radiographic interpretations, just as the acronym.
Staff plan to bring that board member packet, operations packet to the board for updating.
Yeah.
It hasn't been revised since 2022, so it's about time that we address that.
Okay, great.
Okay. Okay, and my last topic is I had a request to kind of break out what the roles and separation of authority is in state government. So a quick presentation, and it's the chart on page 76, and the PowerPoint slide is up as well. So when you're looking at this chart, basically the ultimate authority within state service lies within the legislature and the government, and the governor, I'm sorry. So the role that they play is they create and approve new, amended, or repealed laws, including program creation, scope of practice expansion, fees, and general policy authority through legislation. And then the governor has the final approval or veto authority for those proposals. The second one is the California Office of Administrative Law, or OAL. There's the state agency that approves or denies all proposed regulations from over 200 state agencies submitted in response to statutory and legislative authority for compliance with the standards in California's Administrative Procedures Act. So they are the ones who review all of our regulatory proposals and reviews them in-depthly and hopefully eventually approves them. The third step is our Department of Consumer Affairs, and that's the department that we're under the umbrella of. And they're responsible for overseeing several state government departments to ensure fostering of an equitable and inclusive. I'm sorry, I skipped one, didn't I? The third one, I should say, is Consumer Services and Housing Agency. Got ahead of myself. So they're responsible for overseeing several state government departments to ensure fostering of an equitable and inclusive California. Next slide, please. So number 4 is the Department of Consumer Affairs, who we are under. And they oversee several state government programs such as licensing boards and bureaus or programs to ensure the protection of California consumers. And then the next one is the Dental Hygiene Board, and we are all aware of what our functions and mission is. And the primary one is, of course, consumer protection. I also included, as in number 6, the California Dental Hygienists Association, because we have many licensees. In fact, I just corrected like 3 of them this past week, who mix the board up with the association. I get emails all the time that why hasn't my license been renewed? Because I paid my membership dues and I look at how much they paid and it's not even close to the renewal fee. So we have to explain that to them that we are two separate entities. The board itself is a state government agency in the mission of consumer protection, and the association is overseeing the needs of the profession. So we try to make that as clear as possible. Are there any questions on this short presentation?
I have
That
a
concludes-
question.
Okay, sorry.
At the last board meeting, I had asked to have staff investigate how other DCA boards address interpreting scope of practice. I'm wondering if you were able to actually connect with other boards to see how they address interpreting scope of practice, not the expansion of practice.
Yeah, I have spoken to a few different boards. Each board is, of course, a unique entity in how they deal with scope. But I honestly have to say too, in looking at not only speaking with their executive officers, but looking at their laws as well, there's a purpose with our statutory laws in being, I just call them a little bit vague, as opposed to comparing to other boards. They're a little bit more, I won't say prescriptive, but they do define their scope of practice a little bit more in depthly than we do. But that's the difference in our statutory languages, and live and abide by that. But it's basically how it's defined in your statutory language is how they define what they do in scope.
Dr. Petty had referenced that she didn't remember that conversation. And just from the minutes from the last meeting, the minutes read, Member Long asked if the board had the authority to interpret scope of practice items and requested staff to investigate how DCA boards address the issue of interpreting scope of practice and present findings to the DHBC board meeting at the next meeting, or is that the next meeting?
Yeah, and that's what I included in my update. That's why I wanted to hit the future agenda items where you brought up that issue. Okay.
It just, I did actually reach out and do some inquiries as well. And it seems that understanding that the board's limited to interpreting, implementing the statutes and defining, identifying, and interpreting the dental hygiene practice based on what the statutes say, that the assistance with the DCA attorney when scope of practice is in question, that the DCA, our assigned DCA attorney and the dental hygiene board will interpret the what falls under our scope of practice. So I reached, I got information from the respiratory care board. They had a conflict with the vocational nursing board regarding respiratory care services. And they actually went to have a bill passed that included language of respiratory care statutes stating that the respiratory care board was the only agency to define, identify, and interpret. So it does seem like there's opportunity for the board to make decisions on scope of practice interpretation. And that's not the information that you provided. I understand we can't expand scope of practice, that's legislative, but when it comes to interpreting scope of practice, it seems like it falls on the board and our attorney to advise us.
And
That's the information I got.
Yeah, and that all depends how the statutory language is structured for the particular board. To have that authority, if they can elaborate on scope issues, you have to have that authority first. So it's something that we need to get in regards to our statutory authority to be able to do that, and then we can address things like you just described.
Yeah. Yes, for me, it seems like it's a work in progress. So
it always is.
Yeah.
A lot of these things, especially the laws, are always a work in practice.
Yeah. Okay.
Work in progress, I should say.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I would just like to thank Mr. Lum for putting this chart together. This is excellent. And I think it should be included in all dental hygiene educational programs.
Good idea. Very good idea.
Moving into public comments, are there any public comments?
I do want to say that as an instructor, a past instructor, and someone who goes and talks to dental hygiene
students that we do try to make the difference between the dental board and the CDHA. We even have like a little quiz. So never fear. But anyway, we'll keep trying. Okay. But I am still a little confused about the scope of practice issue. What steps would need to be taken in order for you to feel like you had the authority to interpret? Can you give me details about what would be necessary?
It's a simple fact. Basically what we would need to obtain is legislative authority to be able to review scope of practice issues. That's not the primary focus of this board, however, because it's a consumer protection agency, and that's our mission. So scope is something where, and believe me, I get this question all the time, and licensees that want to do a lot of different things. But it's something that many times, associations like CDHA will provide and obtain authors for legislation for expansion of scope. Well, like I said, the interpretation that we use with the language that we have, we rely on the subject matter experts to do that. Maybe I'm not getting your question right.
If you're speaking, could you use your microphone?
Oh, yeah. Come on back up.
Maybe you could give me an example of how you use those experts, because it seems like you already have the authority to me regarding what Mr. Long has researched, et cetera. So maybe, and I understand, I wrote down what you said about using, but maybe you could give me an example, because there was a situation recently where this board was asked to interpret about myofunctional therapy. And other things will come up, I would imagine, with time.
Yes.
So what, can you tell me a little bit more about the procedure and how you would utilize the expert and then report back to the board and to the public about what the answer was?
Well, what we usually utilize is we'll have, like I said, we use our contracted experts, or we refer to Dr. Petty as well, because wonderful resource in-house. However, when we have a question on scope, what that is we'll identify the section of law where we believe that whatever procedure that was in there is done, and relay that to the expert to interpret whether that's part of scope or not. As an example, if you look in our statutes, therapeutic techniques, that's a broad and wide statement, right? And like I said earlier, I call it kind of vague in comparison to some other boards where they have it more defined. And based upon that statement, if a licensee is found to be doing something, let's just say, and we have a question whether that's within the scope of practice or not, that's where we'll defer to the experts who practice that regularly to determine whether that's within the scope of a dental hygienist or not. That make sense?
Yes. And then if the question had been brought before the board, then you would report out back what the expert said or something.
Well, yeah,
Is that how you-
and depending on how everything is presented, this is just a broad frosting statement. But normally where we use the experts is in enforcement cases, of course, when somebody is found to be practicing outside the standard of practice. So it's
But
other.
not interpretation,
What's that?
but not in interpreting.
That would be something that would be determined by an expert, not staff. We utilize those experts to give us the guidance, so that way we know exactly in close communication with our attorney as well of how to pursue a case. That's pertaining to enforcement. Did you have a different example, or when you talked about myofunctional therapy, again, that's something that's not defined within the statutes as far as or regulation. Other than that, dental hygienists can do Myofunctional therapy assessment, right?
Correct,
And
yes.
that's pretty much
Mhm.
it. Doesn't say anything about ongoing treatment. It's just assessment. But that came from an older regulation section that's more prescriptive as far as what dental hygienists can do, which doesn't parallel what's basically in our statutes. Because like I said, our statutes are kind of vague at this current time.
Yeah. So would you recommend that legislation be advanced to add to your scope of the board?
It could potentially, depends on.
I mean,
what
I know you're busy enough,
Just a little
but
bit, yeah, just a little bit. That all depends on the direction that the board wants to go to. This issue was not brought up for our strategic plan. So it's something where if an individual board member wants to propose that and gets the buy-off from the entire board, then that's something that we could potentially pursue, but that still has to be determined.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any? Go ahead, Julie.
This is Julie Elginer, and I just wanted to offer the board and Executive Officer Lum a little bit of context. So I think most of you know I spent 5 years on the Board of Chiropractic Examiners. It was a very similar issue, or I think there's some analogies in terms of scope of practice. It is slightly different in that the Chiropractic Board was created through an initiative act from 1929. And so anytime scope of practice issues came up, it referred back to the Initiative Act, how practice was designed at the time of when the Initiative Act was passed. And so obviously between 1929 and fast forward to 2017 to 2012 to 2017, when I served on the board, much had changed in terms of practice. However, the challenges that both the public are describing is that it is difficult and it is necessary to rely on those subject matter experts to be able to provide guidance in terms of how practice evolves, and specifically at the same time how it fits within those, in our case, the legislation that governs this board, or in the case of chiropractors, the Initiative Act. When there are substantive changes that want to be made, it does require a legislative change. In the case of this board, and or for the chiropractic board, it would have required an initiative to be reintroduced. And if you're familiar with the ballot initiative process, it's expensive, it's timely, time consuming, and it's extremely difficult to get passed. So I just wanted to let everyone here know that there are other boards that struggle with the same kinds of things. And I did want to just offer that the chiropractic board and working with their executive officer might be a good frame of reference in terms of how they address these kinds of things as they come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. We appreciate all your expertise you bringing to the board. Are there any other board members' discussion?
I just do have one question for Lum. Who are our subject matter experts?
I don't have a laundry list of them at the current time, but we do have some licensees. We have some educators and the like. And in a public forum, I really wouldn't feel comfortable sharing names because they do review sensitive information or enforcement cases, to be specific. And that's something.
Is that something that the board members can be privy to?
Is there a reason for that?
Well, you referenced using the subject matter experts. The only one I know of is the ones that attend the meetings.
Sure, but the experts really don't have any input on policy issues, which this board should be focusing on. And there's really no reason for us to share names.
Okay.
Board members.
But when we talk about interpreting scope of practice and you say you rely on subject matter experts, and Ms. Galliano, who has spoke many times as subject matter expert, was agreed that something like myofunctional therapy was in the dental hygiene scope of practice, then I'm confused on what subject matter experts were using. With the one in front of us is saying that this is within the board's privy to interpret scope of practice. So I'm just curious if she's the only one, because I don't know of other subject matter experts. So that was my question. I don't need to know who these people are, if you're not comfortable sharing that, but.
No, I'm not.
If, at this point, I'm assuming she's the only one, so.
Well, she's the only one that provided comment on this because as she does all the time, she faithfully attends our meetings.
And we appreciate that.
Yeah, but for the others, there may be some listening through WebEx, but you know, they don't feel comfortable in commenting. You know, it's something that I don't feel comfortable sharing.
Yep. Okay. I appreciate that.
May I ask one more quick question, which is there an opportunity for board members to submit names of potential subject matter experts for consideration?
Yes, that would help us out a lot as well to get the word out that we have it on our website as well for posting. If you would like to become a subject matter expert, we have an application available and it's right there of our website.
Are there any other comments? DCA moderator, would you please open the QR function, please?
Certainly. If anyone would like to make a comment on the executive officer report, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. And our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker would have 2 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any requests for comment? I have a request from Rachel Doherty. And Rachel, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. And you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Rachel Doherty, and I just wanted to recommend that, of course, and mention that the scope of interpretation actually is to offer consumer protection. And while we know that legislation is necessary to broaden the scope of practice, we just feel that maybe the board should be able to conduct a review with whatever experts necessary to define the scope in order to prevent improper practice rather than just for investigative purposes only. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I do not see any further requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
DCA moderator, please do close that.
Thank you.
Executive officer, go ahead and make a comment.
This is Executive Officer Anthony Lum. Just based upon that last comment, I just had a small comment. In trying to define the scope of practice, I know that the history as far as the reason why the language that we have is vague. And if we're trying to define scope of practice, especially if it's in law, then that's going to make it a little more prescriptive, which I think is the opposite of what was intended in the original language. So I caution if that's something that the board wants to do in pursuit of defining the scope further into the SHA. Thank you.
Are there any further comments from the public? At this point, we'll resume a break for 15 minutes and we'll convince Ann at 10:45. We move into agenda item 10, discussion of possible action on dental hygiene education program task force. Penalty rubrics in non-compliant programs, board members, and subject matters experts. I would like to ask Executive Officer Anthony Long to present this agenda for us, please.
Thank you, President Hanson. This item was actually brought up at our last meeting in November, and what staff requested was to create a task force to create enforcement actions that could be taken against the dental hygiene educational program that was found deficient of the law and non-compliant within the timelines that were set up for them, or the very reasonable timelines that we set up for these programs to come into compliance. What this agenda item requests, because the task force is being set up for two reasons. One is that this request is asking for 2 board members to be a part of this task force. And the second reason for this being a task force rather than, say, the education committee to address it is that it gives us the flexibility to do a lot more work without having to agendize a public meeting every time. The task force will do the work. We're very transparent on this. The task force will be doing the work and presenting draft language back to the education committee at a future date. But first, we just want to arrange this task force to get the draft language completed. So with that, what we would consist the task force of is 2 board members, preferably 1 licensee and 1 public member. And then we'll recruit 3 subject matter experts to be a part of this task force with knowledge of educational programs. So with that, I would like to ask the board if 2 volunteers would like to jump in and be a part of this task force. I know you all have busy schedules, but this is what we would like to form.
Hi, this is Julie Elginer. I'm a public member. I'd like to volunteer for this task force. For frame of reference, I served on the enforcement committee as part of the chiropractic board. I spent a year in that capacity. I also obviously am a faculty in a higher education institution. So while I do not sit on the education committee currently for the dental or the dental hygiene board, I do have expertise in both of these areas and feel as though I could be a contributing member.
Thank you. Have a licensee member who would like to volunteer.
Yes, Joanne Pacheco, I would also like to volunteer if it is not a conflict of interest, and with 28 years in higher education in dental hygiene, I would be interested.
Yep. Thank you, Joanne, for volunteering for the task force. Okay, so. Yes, please.
This is Justin Matthews. I recommend for the board to accept Pacheco and Elginer as task force members and to add SMEs to the task force and formulate a DHEP penalty rubric, thereby establishing consistent penalties against DHEPs in violation of DHBC laws, regulations, and CODA standards.
This is Long, I second.
Is there any discussion?
I just want to thank everyone for volunteering.
Any further discussion from the board members? Any public discussion?
What recommendations? Those other members or not?
I'd be glad to accept recommendations. That'd be
Okay.
fine.
Well, then.
I mean, you can forward those to me offline. Yeah.
Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you.
DCA moderator, would you open the WebEx forum, please?
Certainly. This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that. And our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. Are there any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that public comment?
Please go ahead and do so.
Thank you.
Now I will ask Secretary Naneli Yoli Tribal Arwal to please take a roll on the agenda.
This is Lori Agarwal. I'd like to call the roll. Julie Algener,
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen,
Aye.
Sherman King,
Aye.
Michael Long,
Aye.
Justin Matthews,
Aye.
Joanne Pacheco,
Aye.
Sri Devi Punella. The Agarwal, aye. This motion has passed. That's
Thank you so much. The motion is passed. Thanks, Julie and Joanne, for stepping up. Looking forward to see all your hard work. Moving to agenda number 11, discussion of possible action, Education Committee report and recommendations. I will ask Michael Long to please present this report.
I, as chair of the Education Committee, will present the agenda item. As there were action items that required individual recommendation, I'm going to report each item separately. On the informational only items, a summary will be provided at the end of my report. First, we established a quorum and asked for public comment to items not on the agenda. There were no public comments. Next, the Education Committee addressed Educational Committee Agenda Item 3 regarding discussion and possible action on consideration to approve the new dental hygiene educational program by California Baptist University. California Baptist University, CBU, submitted a letter of intent to request Dental Hygiene Board of California approval to establish a Bachelor's of Science in Dental Hygiene educational program based in Riverside, California, to address educational needs as well as increase preventive oral health services and access to care in the communities of Riverside, Ontario, San Bernardino, and the many underserved populations in the Inland Empire region. On January 9th, 2025, CBU submitted a feasibility study to the board for review and consideration to establish the Bachelor's of Science in Dental Hygiene education program. Yesterday, March 21st, 2025, the Education Committee considered staff's review report for the CBU feasibility study and voted to recommend to the full board to provisionally approve the new dental hygiene educational program offered by CBU.
Thanks for your report, Michael Long. At this time, we'd like to ask for a motion to pass.
This is Board Member Matthews. I move for the board to accept the Education Committee's recommendation to provisionally approve the new dental hygiene education program offered by California Baptist University.
This is Sherman King, a second.
Are there any comments?
So
Go ahead, Julie.
I think it's open to board member comments first, right? So while I do not, this is Julie Elgener, while I do not sit on the Education Committee, I reviewed the 400 plus pages of the submission, and I wanted to echo a comment that was made yesterday, which was it was very thorough and exceptionally well done. I also wanted to offer a couple of suggestions. One, I want to ask that the Cal Baptist consider incorporating, if you're not already, some sort of public health component as part of it, whether it's an educational component, a professional development component. I also wanted to offer myself as a resource, given the fact that I'm in Southern California also and have expertise in public health, and I'm happy to come to the university and be able to give just a general overview of the needs of not just the Inland Empire, but the broader public health issues that are facing our Southern California area. So thank you.
Are there any further comments from the board? Are there any public comments?
Donovan, Accounting Program Director, Baptist, and on behalf of
Could you use the microphone, please?
yes, on behalf of the university, I would like to just thank the board for their review and the acceptance of the program. Thank you so much.
Are there any other public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the QAR?
Certainly. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. And our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. This is about the Education Committee report and recommendation. I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close public comment?
Please go ahead and do so.
Thank you.
Next, the Education Committee addressed agenda item for, oh, my bad. Trying to just speed the process up a little bit.
At this moment, I will ask Secretary Nelly Oleli Tribal Ottawa to please take a roll and
Lolly Agarwal, I will now call the roll. Julie Algener,
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen,
aye.
Sherman King,
Aye.
Michael Long,
Aye.
Justin Matthews,
Aye.
Joanne Pacheco,
Aye.
Sridevi Panola, Lolly Agarwal, aye. This motion has passed.
At this time, Chairman,
Now,
sir,
now.
you may proceed.
The Education Committee addressed agenda item 4, discussion and possible action on the proposed dental hygiene educational program cohort decrease requested by Cabrillo College. On September 1st, 2024, Cabrillo College sent a copy of their submission to CODA regarding a request for a change in enrollment pattern to the Dental Hygiene Board of California and requested to be placed on the board's March 2021-2022 through 2022-2025 agenda item. Cabrillo is requesting board approval to admit 20 students every other year starting from the next academic cycle in June 2025. The first cohort under this new enrollment pattern would begin in June 2026, and subsequent cohorts would follow every 2 years. Yesterday, March 21st, 2025, the Education Committee considered Cabrillo's request and voted to recommend to the full board to approve Cabrillo's request.
At this moment, I'd like to see if we can do a motion for this, please.
This is Board Member Matthews. I move for the board to accept the Education Committee's recommendation to recommend to the full board to approve the change in enrollment pattern of the Cabrillo College Dental Hygiene Program to admit a cohort of 20 students every other year rather than on an annual basis.
This is Shri Ponala. I second.
Is there any board member discussion? Do we have any public comment discussion? Seeing none, DCA moderator, would you facilitate it?
Certainly. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. Our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close public comment?
Please go ahead and do so.
Thank you.
This moment, I will ask Secretary Nadali Yoli Tribal Arawal to please take a roll.
Ms. Lolly Agarwal, and I'll call the roll. Julie Algener,
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen,
Aye.
Sherman King,
Aye.
Michael Long,
Aye.
Justin Matthews,
Aye.
Joanne Pacheco,
Aye.
Sridevi Panola, Lolly Agarwal, aye. This motion has passed.
Committee Chair Michael Long.
Thank
Your
you.
accept.
Next, the Education Committee acted upon Agenda Item 5, discussion and possible action on the proposed dental hygiene educational program schedule request from Concord Career College. Concord Career College, CCC, requested for the Dental Hygiene Board of California to consider accepting the current academic schedule for the CCC Dental Hygiene Educational Program at Garden Grove, San Bernardino, and San Diego. The Education Committee determined that the current CCC schedules consist of only 9 weeks of education. CCC is in violation of California law. Additionally, all other California dental hygiene programs consist of at least 10 weeks of instruction. Those programs using a quarter system. Yesterday, March 21st, 2025, the Education Committee considered CCC's request and voted to recommend to the full board to disapprove CCC's request and enforce that CCC's program is to consist of at least 10 weeks of instruction per CCC term.
Thank you, Chair Michael Long. At this moment, I'd like to see any motion.
This is by Member Chairman King. I make a motion for the board to accept Education Committee's recommendation to disapprove the request of accept the current academic schedule for the dental hygiene education program, Golden Grove and San Bernardino and San Diego.
Board Member Matthews, second.
Are there any board member discussion? Are there any public comment discussion? See none, DCA moderator, would you facilitate a QA?
Certainly. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. Our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 2 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Please go ahead and do so.
Thank you.
At this moment, I will ask again Secretary Nali Yoli Trabarawal to please take a vote on the agenda item.
This is Lolly Agarwal, and I will now call the roll. Julie Algener.
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen.
Aye.
Sherman King.
Aye.
Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews. Joanne Pacheco.
Aye.
Sri Devi Panola.
Aye.
Lolly Agarwal. Aye. This motion has passed.
Thank you so much. Continue with Chairman Michael Long.
Lastly, I would like to present a report on the Education Committee's informational items, which were Agenda Item 6. Dental Hygiene Educational Program Site Visit Update and Schedule, and Agenda Item 7, Future Agenda Items. For the Dental Hygiene Educational Program Site Visit Update and Schedule, Dr. Petty reported on the current compliance status of Pasadena City College, Taft College, Cabrillo College, Cypress College, Concord Career College, San Diego, Cerritos College, Concord Career College, Garden Grove, Carrington College, San Jose, Concord Career College, San Bernardino, and West Los Angeles College. She also provided an update on the current dental hygiene educational site visit schedule, program site visit schedule. For the agenda items, Linda Brookman requested for the board interim therapeutic restoration training for all RDH AP programs. This is the end of my report.
Thank you, Chairman Michael Long. Moving into, do we have any board member discussion? See none. Do we have?
I would like to say something. In the package material for the new dental hygiene program, there was information referencing dental hygiene shortage, workforce shortage. there was a, so I did some, I've heard this a number of times, and I wanted to just talk about it and share my experience. I found in the report that there was a reference to the American Dental Association's Health Policy Institute, where 4 in 10 dental practices are recruiting dental hygienists, with the vast majority of them citing that they're extreme or very challenging to find dental hygienists. I've been a dental hygienist for 19 years, and the majority of the time I've worked in private practice. I've worked for 9 different dentists over this time period. Of those 9 offices, there's only 2 that I would continue to work for. So I want to share that with you, that my concerns in the dental office are, there's short appointments, there's failing dental equipment, there's pressure to upsell. I worked for one dental office that was a very poor business manager, where patients were complaining to me in the dental chair. One dentist overdiagnosed and drilled unhealthy teeth, so much so that I had to tell a 32-year-old female patient to go get a second opinion. I've experienced confrontational and unprofessional communications in this office. After I left, a colleague went into work with this practice. She worked there for 4 weeks and then walked out shift. Another office had numerous OSHA and Cal-OSHA violations. Additionally, this dentist, the dental work was substandard. As a dental hygienist, my job is preventive care. When I'm working with a dentist that's not doing quality work and causing oral health issues, it's a problem. So I do appreciate that the letter in reference that CDA sent, and if I can read it, that based on National Health Policy Institute survey, approximately 1,000 dentists, 95% of dentists looking to hire have faced difficulty in finding dental hygienists. Now, in my experience, 75% of the practice I've worked in, I wouldn't recommend, and I would actually encourage dental hygienists not to work in these practices. So these numbers are probably accurate, and I don't know if it's a shortage issue, or if not every dental office is meant to is going to fit the bill for where I want to work. So I encourage the board and the members and the public that when you hear that there's a dental hygiene work shortage, also realize that we have a choice where we want to work, and 40%, or in my case, 75% of the offices, I wouldn't work again. So I just want to mention that. So please understand that in the future when you're hearing references to this information. That's all. Thank you.
Are there any further board member discussion? Are there any public comment discussion?
My long experience, I agree with the comments of Mr. Long. However, I want to inform the board, if they don't know already, that HCI is supposed to be studying dental and dental hygiene workforce in 2025. I have been in contact with them, and there seems to be some delay, probably due to financing. But they are working on trying to get a handle on the workforce in California. I would also caution people against using national statistics, because California is unique in many ways. I guess every state is unique, but California is specifically unique in terms of its dental hygiene and dental workforce. So be sure that we use current data and that we get the data that we need to make decisions about workforce.
Good morning, Tukazo Kai from the California Dental Association. I want to thank Member Michael Long for sharing their experience, and also echo that the California Dental Association, which represents about 75% of our state's dentists as our members, we extremely value patient safety, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We do have a statement as an organization. We have ongoing trainings to support this. And we want to create spaces where people can access dental care that is for their best, their best health, and that the dental teams are also being included in ways that are focused on prevention and appropriate treatment. So while I thank you for sharing your real experience and that is how you've experienced these dental offices, we do want to share that we are constantly trying to always raise the bar for how our dental teams are fostered and how they treat our patients for protection. In terms of California statistics, we do have, the latest numbers I have are 17,799 active dental hygienists and 36,161 active dentists. So we do have more than double the amount of active dental licensees than we do dental hygienists. And while, as I've shared yesterday, there are additional challenges to recruitment, including the location and
30
salary. Not
seconds.
to say that these are just numbers, but we do have the statistics to show that there is a shortage, and that we have other things to tackle when it comes to addressing challenges to recruitment and the teams really being a team. So I just wanted to share that and echo that, CDA is completely committed to improving the oral health of all Californians, and that takes teams and patient safety first.
Joanne Galliano, 40 years of practicing hygienist and involved with this issue since my inception as a hygienist. One of the things that you have to realize with numbers, statistics can be used however statistics need to be used. The number of dentists doesn't reflect the fact that of those dentists, how many are even hiring hygienists? There are dentists in all sorts of specialties that don't hire hygienists, so that number itself is under question. We don't know how many general practitioners who are actively hiring dentists are in that number. The other thing that you have to realize with hygiene, we're a part-time workforce. We aren't hired full-time. So I may be looking for a job in a dental office, but I may be working in another office Tuesday and Wednesday, and the only day they have open is Monday. So, and then we have the shortage issue in primary areas because there's no dentist there. And as a hygienist, I may graduate from a hygiene program somewhere that's very rural, and I may have a choice of 2 dentists to work for. And if I don't choose to work for those 2 dentists, I have to go out of my area to practice. So again, it's a very complex issue. And I think that we need to really not put blinders on in either direction, but look at overall health and look at what HCI is trying to look at. Where's the distribution and how are we as a state going to best meet the access to care needs of our population? Because we do know that we do have shortages of dental health professionals across the board in certain areas, and that we as a
30 seconds.
board, you guys are responsible for overseeing access to care as well as ensuring consumer protection.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, TCA member. Are there any further public comments? TCA moderator, would you please open the QI?
Certainly. If anyone would like to make a comment, you may click on the hand icon to raise your hand. We do have a couple of requests. First is Cheryl Greer. Cheryl, I'm going to send you a request to unmute, and you'll have 2 minutes with a 30-second warning. Go ahead.
This is Cheryl Greer, RDHAP, and I would echo what Michael Long spoke about as being there's as far as a dental hygienist who have been practicing for 20 years. I have worked many offices, and recently I've noticed that going to different offices, the time is definitely shortened for patients with simple prophies or scaling and root planning. That means deep cleaning. I'm given 45 minutes to do 2 quads or all 4 quadrants of deep cleaning, and it's not it's not an acceptable time to do proper treatment as far as patient education. So I think as far as a shortage, I think it goes back to the of what we're been asked to do. And as far as OSHA and the sterilization process, I'm seeing a lack of because of the time we are given to see patients. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, but when you do shit like that, you really throw me off.
Okay, sorry. Our next request is from Elena Francisco. Elena, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your mic. You're unmuted.
Elena
go ahead.
Elena Francisco, RDHAP. I don't want to belabor this. But I agree with Michael and with Cheryl, and actually with the other speakers as well. I'm an RDHAP and program instructor or program director, I should say. And 100% of the RDHAPs who come into our dental hygiene program say that they need to get out of dental practice because dentistry is not being practiced the way that we were trained with and their dental hygiene care is not being they can't practice dental hygiene care the way we were trained to practice it. And they choose to become self-employed RDHAPs so that they can take care of patients the way patients need to be taken care of. So is the shortage, we're hearing hygienists who are just getting out of, they'd rather work at Macy's than work for a practice where they're being, like Cheryl said, being asked to do a whole mouth of SRP in 1 hour, et cetera, et cetera. So I won't belabor this because you've heard it all very well from these other presenters, but I just wanted to share my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do not see any further requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment field?
Please go ahead and do so.
Thank you.
At this moment, I'd like to ask Secretary Nali Yoleli Arwal. Oh, first of all, let's have a motion pass for this.
This is Julie Elginer. I move for the board to accept the Education Committee's full report.
Matthew, second.
Now the motion has passed. I will ask Secretary Nali Yoleli Arwal to take a roll. Any discussion, sorry. Are there any discussion from the board members? Any public comments? Now I will ask DCA moderator to open the QA facility.
This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. And our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hands. Are there any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that public comment feature?
Please go ahead and do so.
Thank you.
Now, as again, I will ask Secretary Nali Yoleli Arwal to take a roll.
This is Lolly Agrawal, and I'll now call the roll. Julie Algener.
Aye.
Sonia Hansen.
Aye.
Sherman.
Aye.
Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews.
Aye.
Joanne Pacheco.
Aye.
Sridevi Pudnala. Aye. Lolly Agrawal. Aye. This motion has passed.
Now moving to agenda number 12. Discussion of possible action on the Legislative and Regulatory Committee report and recommendations. I will ask Chair Member Madame Lolly Tribal to please fill us.
This is Lolly Agrawal, Committee's Chair, to present the Legislative and Regulatory Committee report. We also had individual actual items to address, like the Education Committee, so they'll be reported individually. A summary of the informational items will be provided at the end of my report. First, the Legislative and Regulatory Committee established a quorum and asked for public comments for items not on the agenda. There were no public comments. Next, the committee reviewed Legislative and Regulatory Agenda Item 4, Discussion and possible actions on amendments to 16 CCR Section 116.5, Registered Dental Hygienist in Alternative Practice, Physical Facility Registration. On January 1st, 2025, California Code of Regulations, CCR Title 16, Section 116.5 went into effect for the registration of physical facilities by registered dental hygienists in alternative practice. Subsequently, the Dental Hygiene Board of California was informed about some confusion regarding the requirements for registration of physical facilities as a standalone practice versus registration of physical facilities to maintain portable equipment. In an effort to address those concerns, board staff prepared the proposed amendments to the previously approved language and form for 16 CCR Section 116.5 for conciseness. Yesterday, March 21st, 2025, the Reg Committee considered the proposed amendments to the previously approved language and form for 16 CCR Section 116.5 and voted to recommend to the full board to approve the proposed amended language and form for CCR Section 116.5.
Thank you. Now, do we have a motion from the board?
This is Julie Elginer, and I move for the board to accept the Legislative and Regulatory Committee's recommendation to approve the proposed amended language and form for CCR Section 116.5 and direct staff to submit the text to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review. If the board does not receive any comments providing objections or adverse recommendations specifically directed at the proposed action or to the procedures followed by the board in proposing or adopting the action, the board authorizes the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any technical or non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for hearing. If requested, if after the 45-day public comment period, no adverse comments are received and no public hearing is requested, the board authorizes the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking process and adopt the proposed regulations as described in the text notice for 16 CCR Section 116.5.
Matthews, second.
Is there any board member discussion? Seeing none, is there any public discussion?
Question, then a discussion. I'm aware that the necessity to register with the department has long been in the law, and that the holdup and the surprise, I suppose, for people was that the form was not available. So now the form is available. And in the discussion yesterday, the executive officer commented on the requirement to re-register biannually. And I think that was part of the surprise for our constituents. My question has to do with his comment that the necessity for that was so that they would know where the RDHAPs were because they could move. And my question is what the board plans to do with that data in terms of knowing where the people are practicing.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. I believe that was for the omnibus bill, not for this regulatory section.
Are there any further public comments? Seeing none, DCA moderator, can you open the Q&A?
Thank you. This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, You may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may look for our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hands. Each speaker will have 2 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Please go ahead and do so.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now moving into asking Secretary Lolly Arwal to please take a roll.
This is Lolly Agrawal, and I will now call the roll. Julie Algener.
Aye.
Sonia Hansen.
Aye.
Sherman King.
Aye.
Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews.
Aye.
Joanne Pacheco.
Aye.
Sridevi Pannala.
Aye.
Lolly Agrawal. Aye. This motion has passed.
Next, our Secretary, Chairman, and Madame Lolly Arwal, please continue.
Next, the committee reviewed legislative and regulatory agenda items 6, discussion and possible action to amend 2025 DHBC Omnibus Bill proposal. EO Anthony Lum reported difficulty obtaining an author for previously approved statutory amendments, but to Business and Professions Code sections 1905A 8, 19151, 1926.3, 1941, and 1944 may be added to the 2025 Omnibus Bill if approved by the legislature. Yesterday, March 21st, 2025, the Leg-Reg Committee considered the proposed amendments to BBC sections 1905A, 1915.1, 1926.3, 1941, and 1944, and voted to recommend to the full board to approve the proposed amendments and direct staff to seek sponsored legislation for 2025.
Thank you, Lolly Arwal. Now moving to a motion.
This is Board Member Matthews. I move for the board to accept the Legislative and Regulatory Committee's recommendation to review the proposed amendments to the 2025 Omnibus Bill SB 861 request to BPC sections 1905A8, 1915.1, 1926.3, 1941, and 1944. If the board determines these changes are warranted, I move for the board to approve the proposed statutory language and consider all or part of the language to be used in an amendment to the omnibus bill. The determination of what language is accepted depends whether some language is substantive and should not be in an omnibus bill.
Shri Ponala, I second.
Is there any board member discussion? See none, is there any public comment discussion?
So I'm re-asking my question. Sorry that I got out of line there regarding the form that is attached to 1926.3 and what the plans are for using the data that is requested biannually.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. The form itself is just a reporting for the board. Staff was requested probably over a year ago to provide data to this board showing the demographics in our statistics. And we have that right now with the RDHs, but I don't believe we share that with the RDHAPs, if I'm not mistaken. But that's the information that we want to share with the board, so that way we can see the distribution throughout the state of where RDHAPs are located. Thank you.
Are there any public comments? DCA moderator, would you please open the QA?
Certainly. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, and our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hands. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. Are there any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the comment feature?
Please go ahead and do so.
Thank you.
I will now ask Yoli Arwell to please take a roll.
This is Lolly Agarwal. I will now call the roll. Julie Algener.
Aye.
Pat Hansen. Aye. Sherman King.
Aye.
Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews.
Aye.
Joanne Pacheco.
Aye.
Sri Devi Panola. Aye. Lolly Agarwal. Aye. This motion has passed.
Next, I will continue with the chairman, Madam Chairman, Loli Arwell.
Next, the Ledge Reg Committee reviewed legislative and regulatory agenda item 7, legislative update, bills of interest and legislative calendar. Dr. Petty reported on new legislation for 2025 of concern to the board. Yesterday, March 21st, 2025, the Ledge Reg Committee considered the new legislation for 2025 of concern to the board and voted to recommend to the full board to approve the proposed positions as follows. AB 224, watch. AB 341, watch. AB 350, support. AB 371, watch. AB 489, watch. AB 873, oppose. AB 966, watch. AB SB 62, watch. And SB 351, watch.
Move into a motion.
This is Julie Elginer. I move for the full board to accept the Legislative and Regulatory Committee's recommendation to approve the proposed positions as follows. AB 224, watch. AB 341, watch. AB 350, support. AB 371, watch. AB 489, watch. AB 873, oppose. AB 966, watch. SB 62, watch. SB 351, watch.
This is Justin Matthews, second.
Is there any board member discussion? Seeing none, is there any public comment discussion? Seeing none, DCA moderator, would you please open the Q8?
Certainly. This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. And our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any comments on the motion? I do not see any comments. Shall I close that public comment feature?
Please go ahead and do so.
Thank you.
Now we'll ask Loli Arwell to please take a roll.
This is Lolly Agarwal. I will now call the roll. Julie Elgener.
Aye.
Sonia Hansen. Aye. Sherman King.
Aye.
Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews.
Aye.
Joanne Pacheco.
Aye.
Sri Devi Panola. Lolly Agarwal. Aye. This motion has passed.
Continue to the Regulatory Committee. Madam Chair, Loli Arwell, please.
Lastly, the committee reviewed the informational-only items, including Ledge Reg Committee Agenda Items 3 regarding California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 1005, Minimum Standards to Infection Control. Ledge Reg Committee Agenda Items 5, Regulatory Update, Status of the Dental Hygiene Board of California Regulatory Packages, and Ledge Reg Committee Agenda Items 8, Future Agenda Items. EO Anthony Lum updated the Ledge Reg Committee on Ledge Reg Committee Agenda Items 3 regarding California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 1005, minimum standards to infection control. It was reported that additional work needs to be done on these regulations so that the Dental Board of California and our subject matter experts will be working to revise the language, and once approved by them at their May 2025 meetings, it will be returned to our board for a consensus vote at our July 2025 meetings. Dr. Petty updated the Ledge Committee on Ledge Committee Agenda Items 5, Regulatory Update, Status of the Dental Hygiene Board of California Regulatory Packages, the status of the board regulatory packages, as well as provided a snapshot of timing for the regulatory package process. The Ledge Committee asked for any future agenda items for the committee to address. There were some future agenda items suggested. Board member Dr. Julie Algener requested for staff to add legislative bill sponsor information as well as committee analysis to the meeting materials. Board member Michael Long asked to bring mobile dental hygiene clinic regulations back before the board to consider removal of automated external defibrillator requirements. This is the end of my report.
Is there any board member discussion?
Shri Ponala, I move for the full board to accept the legislative.
We're not really having discussion.
Okay.
This is Julie Elginer. I just wanted to add that as part of that discussion, as I was asking for this from staff, that it is only if the information is publicly available, and specifically early, like i.e. at this time in the March meeting, bill sponsor information as well as committee consultant analysis may not be available. However, by the time we reconvene in July, and certainly by the time we are reconvening in November, that information would be available. So it is pending that the information is publicly available, not an expectation that you get it if it's not. Thank you.
Are there any other board member discussion? See none, moving to public comments. Seeing none, DCA moderator, can you facilitate the QR?
Certainly. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. And our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hands. Each speaker will have 2 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
At this time, the board is asking for a motion to accept Legislative Regulatory Committee report.
Now I move for the full board to accept the legislative and regulatory committee's report. Shri Ponala.
Michael Long, I second.
Is there any board member discussion? See none, is there any public comment discussion? See none, DCA moderator, can you facilitate the Q8?
This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. Our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hands. And each speaker will have 2 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Please go ahead and do so.
Thank you.
Now we'll ask Secretary Lolly Arwell to take a roll.
Mrs. Lolly Agrawal, I would take the roll. Julie Algener.
Aye.
Sonia Hanson.
Aye.
Sherman King.
Aye.
Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews. Joanne Pacheco.
Aye.
Sri Devi Panola. Lolly Agrawal. Aye. This motion has passed.
Moving to Agenda 13, Enforcement Update is the statistical report. I will ask Albert Law to assist Executive Officer to present this agenda.
Thank you, President Hansen. Good morning, board members. I'm Albert Law, Assistant Executive Officer, here to present the enforcement report. This is informational only. Detailed enforcement statistic can be found in the materials beginning on page 83, page 86, and in the enforcement statistic addendum. You will see the following in 24-25 fiscal year between July 1st, 2024 through February 2025. The board received 63 consumer complaints and 9 arrest conviction complaints. The board initiated 272 complaints, which are mostly related to citation and fines due to continuing education fail. Further, the board opened 23. Desk investigation closed 366 cases at the end of February 2025. Currently have 50 cases, with 17 cases that's over 1 year old and cases that's over 2 years old. There is also a bar graph on page 84 showing the number of closed complaints over the past several fiscal years. Our special investigator closed a total of 40 cases with 90 cases that's pending. In cases, only 2 cases are over. So far, the board issued a total of 231 citation and fine, $192,800 in fines, and hit $101,375 this fiscal year. Its probation monitor addressed 7 probation violations, and during this reporting period, positive drug screens for banned substance. That concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your information. Moving, are there any board member discussion?
I do have a question. Albert, thank you for your report. On the graph that indicates the closed investigations closed, you had referenced, I'm sorry, I missed the number, but on the graph it says 40 of them were closed and action were taken on 19?
No, there's 19 pending investigation.
19 pending.
Mm-hmm.
With 40 of them closed.
Yes.
As a board member, I only review a handful of these that are sent to me. Can you tell me remind me the process of that you go through to investigate and then engage the board members with the decision?
Sure. So enforcement, there's different types of enforcement cases. There are cases that we receive from Department of Justice regarding subsequent arrests. And those cases are dependent on the arrest and conviction. So a lot of time, complaints related to subsequent arrest doesn't result in anything because there were no actions. So therefore, the board closed the case because there were evidence to substantiate any violations of the Dental Practice Act. As far as a consumer complaint goes, our special investigator will do his due diligence to investigate all complaints filed with us. But a lot of time, those complaints after investigation does not result in substantiation of the violation of the Dental Practice Act. Cases that do substantiate the violation of the Dental Practice Act, whether it is consumer complaint or subsequent arrests, there are different mechanisms that we use to determine the outcome of the case, and that can result in either a citation and fine, us referring it to the Attorney General's office, as some of you, the board members here, have received correspondence from enforcement analyst Sabra in guarding votes to either adopt stipulated settlements or proposed decision that is issued by the administrative law judge.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
And the utilization of the enforcement committee, how would I understand we have an enforcement committee. How would you utilize the enforcement committee and why don't we committee?
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. We do have an enforcement committee. However, our enforcement processes haven't had us bring any type of action item for the committee. So basically, that committee would listen to the statistics that were just presented to you, and then we'd close the committee. So you still have your opportunity to ask all of your questions. This is just in front of the full board rather than a committee. And it's just in respect of time efficiency for the board members to not have an additional committee meeting unless there's an action item.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question to that. This is to either of our executive officer or the assistant executive officer. When was the last time that the disciplinary guidelines were reviewed? And does that fall under the purview of the enforcement committee?
Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. Yeah, the enforcement guidelines have been in need of updating for a number of years. And we have been trying to work on that. We attempted initially, and then something called the pandemic jumped in, interrupted that. And since that time, we have been trying to keep it on our agenda. I believe it's part of the strategic plan to look at and update. So that's part of the plan that we have moving forward for staff to work on that and then bring it to the enforcement committee once a draft is done. We'll be working with legal, this guy, and getting it all prepared for the committee to review to present to the full board.
Is there any further discussions for the board members? Seeing none, are there any public comments? Seeing none, DCA moderator, would you please open the Q8?
Certainly, this is the moderator. If anyone has any comments about the enforcement report, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. And our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. If anyone does choose to speak, you'll have 2 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments on the enforcement report? I do not see any requests. Shall I close that feature?
Please go ahead and close it.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. I just wanted to make one more comment in regards to like the disciplinary guidelines and other big projects. I don't mean to use the pandemic as some kind of excuse. It's all in the timing. It just so happened that our timeline because we have quite a few members that are fairly new, right after the pandemic, we had Sunset Review. So that was a huge project. One right after that was our strategic plan. So those two projects took priority over looking at the disciplinary guidelines. Just wanted to let you know for the history.
Also, I want to make a comment that as was an acting president for a while, I was working with Ambrose in the cases, and I was very happy to see cases moving forward, things being taken in action. I understand that we have shortage on the staff, but cases being addressed, and hopefully we can further make more enhancements to the cases to be in work on. Moving to agenda number 14. Licensing, continuing education, audits, examination update, the statistical report only. I would ask Albert Law to please present this for us.
Thank you, President Hanson. This is Albert Law, Assistant Executive Officer, here to present the licensing continuing education report. This again is informational only. Presenting this information for Tracy Napper, who is our licensing manager, who can't make it to today's board meeting. This fiscal year, the board issued 403 RDH licenses, 41 RDH AP licenses, and also 14 fictitious name permit. On page 89, you will see the current law on RDH law and ethics pass rate, which showed that 512 applicants passed their exam, with 71% of applicants passing their test on the first attempt, while 29% passed after taking the test 2 or more times. There were 57 RDHAP that passed the law and ethics exam, with 80% of RDHAP applicants passing it first attempt, 11% passing it after 2 or more attempts. On page 90, the data shows we have 18,118 active RDH licenses, 783 RDH-AP licensees, and 15 RDH-EF licensees. In addition, there are also 9 military temporary licensees that's currently working with the state. On page 93 to 96, you will also see the ratios of active RDH and RDH-AP licensees per populations based on counties in Columbia. On page 97 you will see that the board conducted 666 continuing education audits so far this fiscal year. Fortunately, there continues to be similar trends in the passed and failed audited licensees, with only 59% of licensees passing their audits and 30% fail. That's my licensing and CE statistic report, and for any questions.
Thank you, Albert, for your information. Are there any board member discussion?
Yes, this is Julie Elginer. Thank you for that. I have 2 quick questions. The first is I'd like to reference the statistics on page 90, which is the RDH Law and Ethics exam, as well as the RDHAP Law and Ethics exam. And my question is, are these statistics shared with the program directors at the various schools? And if so, what's the frequency with which these are shared?
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. Funny that you should ask that, because we are just implementing a program to notify the schools twice a year on those exam results.
Okay, I want to commit that this should be a priority to make sure that those are communicated. I realize that there could be individuals taking these exams that it's been a long time since, or maybe that they have taken it, and perhaps they had to take this law and ethics exam as part of a stipulated settlement or something else. However, it's concerning to me when I see statistics of, fail rates of over 20%. That is an enormous concern from a consumer protection standpoint. So I want to please emphasize that. I would also love to see, as part of that the program directors have some sort of reporting requirement back to the board as to what they're doing to specifically communicate that to their students, and then also to, potentially just address that within their curriculum. So that would be the first thing.
We can, Anthony Lum, Executive Officer, we can try our best to do all of that. However, please keep in mind that we have limited staff resources, time, et cetera, to run this program. And we're gradually implementing things to hopefully improve that law and ethics exam results. But if I may indulge with just a little bit, part of the issue, to be honest, and I don't want to point fingers, but one story that I have told, I don't know about this board, but I've told in the past, many times we've done outreach to CDHA events. And one in particular that I was at, it was focused for the students. And what happened was I happened to be right at my table. There was a big group of students standing right in front of me. And what they were talking about is, oh, are you studying for the law and ethics exam? Most of them said no. They indicated that they didn't take the exam seriously. They were focused on the clinical exam at that time. Fortunately, there was I believe it was a new licensee that was standing 2 feet from him, and he taps him on the shoulder and says, you guys need to study for this exam and take it seriously. So part of the problem with the failure rate is not anything of the board's control. It has to rely on the student as well to do their due diligence.
Thank you for that information. I'm happy to have a discussion offline about that, but I also want to say that in terms of the reporting requirements back from the schools, it could be as simple as a Google form. We're not talking about anything that is lengthy and extensive for these program directors to be able to respond to a series of 2 or 3 questions as to what they're doing to address this. But I do think that it should not just be a one-way communication where the board is communicating the statistics to the programs, that there should be some mechanism built in that the programs are reporting back to the board as to what they're doing specifically to address these failure statistics. The second comment that I have is I want to say thank you for providing the breakdown of the license information on a county basis. As a public health practitioner and as a public health faculty, I found that all very helpful. And I think it also addresses the comment that was made by the public earlier as to what this information, what do we do when we collect this information in terms of practicing licensees on a county basis. This information is very helpful. So I just want to say thank you. I noted it and I appreciate the breakdown. Thank you.
I'll follow up with that, and the RDH AP information on that is new, and I appreciate you guys breaking that down and adding that into the report. I believe this information comes from where the licensee is registered versus where they're actually practicing. So I think that the question earlier was the information that we're requesting from the APs is where are you actually practicing? Because I could be practicing outside of where I live in San Francisco, for example.
Anthony Lum, Executive Officer, and that's the focus of what we want to do with this new request at the renewal time. The statistics were requested to be presented in regards to the licensee population and the breakout throughout California, but all we have right now is to break it out from the address of record. So that's how it's distributed in this form. The new form that will be coming out will request where the areas that they're working. So that way we can determine, focus points or needed areas and things like that. Thank you.
This is Joanne Pacheco. I just wanted to address Julie's comment. There is a section in the Code of Standards for accreditation for California all dental hygiene programs. Standard 219 is under ethics and professionalism, as well as standard 2-20 that does address that in educational programs.
Are there any further comments from the board?
This is Board Member Matthews, and I just had a question for Albert. So I'm looking on page, let's see, 98 at the top, and there's a little pie chart for the failed audits. And it says here that 28% of the failed audits were because of an invalid continuing education provider, right? So does that mean, so I'm not a licensee, so does that mean that the licensee took a course through someone that took their money, they did the course, and that CE provider is not listed as one that we accept?
Yes, unfortunately, there are a lot of CE providers out there, and our CE requirement is very specific, and they all have to be cert, PACE, or by the board. And some of these CE providers don't have any of those certifications or have other certifications that we don't accept. So therefore, they are deemed to be invalid CE providers that licensees took courses on.
So the onus is on the licensee to verify that that CE course is something that we would accept.
Yes, that is correct.
Because these CE providers might be providing a course that maybe another state would allow. It feels a little predatory for me, like the CE provider taking the money, but not letting the person know that's in California that this course is not for them. Is there action that who's overlooking these CE providers?
I can help with that. So when you register as a licensee, I look on the registration form, and usually it'll say it's approved by PACE, CERP, or it's approved by the dental hygiene, or this program is accepted by the Dental Hygiene Board of California for 7 units of continuing education. So hygienists, all licensees are informed that they need to look for that information. And the board has put it out before. We were having a lot of problems when I first came on with people submitting this. And Executive Officer Lum sent out emails. We put it in our, oh, what is that thing called? The newsletter. We've put it in the newsletter. Please look for this. We've sent out email blasts. And unfortunately, the licensees don't always read it and are not always familiar. And that's the whole purpose of having the law and ethics exam, so they know where to go and look for this. So, you know, program directors are constantly telling their students, when you get out, please look for this. It's on there. And even with continuing education in basic life support, the board, not just us, but the dental board does not accept totally online basic life support. And to this day, when I'm going to dental hygiene programs, and Joanne Galliano, my SME, can confirm this, we still are having people taking basic life support using a fully online course. It's been put out there ad nauseum. And it really, at this point, is on the licensee to look for this information. And it's not just because I work for the board that I'm aware of this, it's because of constant reminders, and, you know, they do have to take a little bit of responsibility themselves.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. There's also ongoing information on our website. It's the same thing that we put out in the newsletter, and it provides the CE information in depth. A lot of detail on that, and we started working on that when we began CE audits for these licensees. I understand your perspective as far as, you know, the licensee not knowing if a provider is approved or not. But unfortunately, that's the way the regulations are set up at the current time. And we've, like Dr. Petty said, you know, ad nauseum, we've sent out email blasts to all licensees, not just our subscribers. And we've posted the information on our website. So constantly, if they go onto the website, click on CE, you'll see the information.
I just have a follow-up question to that. Is this current information in terms of the current 28%, is that published on our website?
Are you talking about as far as the failure rate?
Yes.
It's in the meeting materials. So
No, I understand, but I'm saying, you know, is there a specific section in continuing education where licensees can see that 28% of recent audits were as a result of failure because of the incorrect or whatever it might be around the CEs specifically? And I'm
at the current time, it's not posted besides our meeting materials. However, with the revision in our website coming in the near future, that could be something that we add in.
I would like to suggest that to be added so that the licensees have current statistics that's available and that they're able to access that. The second thing I'd like, or I'd suggest as part of the ongoing conversations that our executive officer is having with the Dental Hygienists Association is to encourage them to be able to, again, add this as an agenda item through their association to make sure that licensees are in fact following the necessary protocols to be able to verify those. Again, I don't think it's the responsibility of this board, the purview of this board. However, we do have ongoing conversations with professional associations, and it seems like that's an excellent mechanism to do that. Thank you.
Are there any further comments? Is there any public comments?
Sorry. Yes, your comment is very well taken, and we have published it in our journal, newsletters, e-blasts many times, and we will continue to do so because we want a good pass rate.
Thank you so much. Are there any further public comments? Seeing none, DCA moderator, would you please open the QA facility?
Certainly. If anyone would like to make a comment, you may look for the hand icon and click that. Our calling users may press *3 to raise their hand. We do have a hand up from Elena Francisco. Elena, I'm sending you a request to unmute. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. I like the comment about, is this kind of predatory? Is there kind of a predatory vein to this, to teach people teaching classes that aren't, that aren't sanctioned. I don't know that it's necessarily, uh, I don't want to say a predatory thing, but I've actually been to dental conferences. I've been to the Pacific Northwest Dental Conference, and none of the classes that I never saw anywhere on those classes. It was a fabulous conference. I was there for 3 days, took some fabulous courses. I couldn't use any of them in the state of California because they weren't PACE or dental board sanction. I went to an international dental hygiene conference. So you can go to these conferences and you do it just because you want to learn. But then I can see a hygienist not saying, well, man, I have 50 units. I'm going to claim them. But 40 of them were in these fabulous conferences that we just can't use in our state. Is there a mechanism? And before you tell me, it's on the website. It just might be, but this is the most confusing website I've ever seen in my life, and I've never been able to find it. Is there a mechanism for us to challenge the inability to use these courses that are not sanctioned by PACE or CERT? Say, for instance, the International Dental
30
Hygiene
seconds.
Symposium. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do not see any further requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Please go ahead and do so.
Thank you.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. Currently, there is no mechanism to quote challenge CE. Basically, we utilize not only the approvers who were mentioned earlier, but we also use the regulations from the dental board as far as continuing education is concerned. So it's pretty laid out. We've provided the information, and part of the issue that we've run into as well in communicating with licensees is there's the requirement of 25 units, roughly seven, which are required. The rest they can take on as long as they're on any subject matter, as long as they're appropriately approved. However, in my prior profession, I took well over the required number of CEs. And I think a lot of the licensees that we talk to are looking for that, let me just take 25 and I'll be done. But if you're interested in learning, education is priceless. And if you want to take courses that are not approved, by all means, but don't just focus in on just completing CEs just for the license renewal. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Officer. Moving to agenda number 15. Any recommendations from the board to move to further items to the agenda?
This is Julie Elginer. I have 4 comments. The first is I'd like to make a suggestion that the Ledge Reg Committee implement a mid-meeting teleconference to review pieces of legislation as well as the status of the omnibus bill that will move throughout the legislative process between now and July. I understand that for cost containment purposes that this meeting may have to be via teleconference only. However, I feel strongly that a 4-month time period is too long to be able to not have actionable updates in between that. So especially when other boards do have that committee that meet much more frequently than 3 times a year. So that is my first suggestion. My second suggestion is around the Enforcement Committee, which we discussed a bit today. In the spirit of transparency, revisiting the guidelines and so forth, I would like to encourage, as well as alignment with a strategic plan, I would like to encourage the reconstitution of that committee, as well as regular meetings that occur as part of the board's responsibilities. My next one is 2 questions. They're not really necessarily board items, but I do want to just ask. I did not notice in the board member policy and procedure that there's any sort of requirement for board members to disclose that they have been appointed when they are working just as a consumer with providers. And so I wanted to ask if that's something that has been considered previously. Do board members have a responsibility when they go in to have their teeth cleaned to disclose to the licensees that they in fact have been appointed to the board? My last question is around just an observation that I want to make, and I don't know if this is, if this was by happenstance, but I did want to encourage just the alignment of the board members to consider having the public appointees interspersed with the licensees so that there isn't a perception of a division in terms of those individuals on one side of the meeting room that hold a license versus those people who do not hold a license, and that we can make sure that it's inclusion as part of that. It might have just been happenstance, but I just want to suggest that we're consistent and that we're cognizant of that. Thank you.
This is Anthony Loam, Executive Officer. That was totally coincidental. Because I made the seating chart and I just put it in there, not with that intention at all. So yes, I normally disperse licensees with public members. I'll keep a better eye on that next time. Thank you.
I would like to point out that I've never sat next to Dr. Petty. Okay, I have sat next to Dr. Petty once.
I do have an additional item. It's EO Lum mentioned it earlier, the date for our November meeting, November 14th and 15th. It's at the same time that the California Dental Hygienists Association has their annual House of Delegates conference. Myself as a member will need to attend that. I believe Member Agarwal will as well. So I would request that we explore a new date for that meeting. November 14, 15, 2025.
This is Executive Officer Anthony Lum. What staff will do is create some available dates to bring back in July for the board members to choose.
Are there any further discussions from the board? Seeing none, are there any public comments?
I'd just like to comment on the calendar. I don't know about the rest of you, but I plan my calendar out quite far in advance, and waiting until July to find out what a November meeting is. I mean, you're holding open all of November then. So is there any way that we could potentially, the board could potentially have dates earlier than that and just send in a, yes, this date works, this date doesn't work, so that the public can know and plan and the board members can know and plan?
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. The issue with that is this is for a future agenda item, and I understand your position. However, it's not on the agenda, and the only time when all of board members meet should be in public, and that'll be the July meeting. We could handle it if we do arrange this teleconference meeting to be a little bit earlier, so that could be an option.
Are there any further public meet? Seeing none, DCA moderator, can you facilitate the QA?
Certainly, we've opened up the public comment feature. If you'd like to make a comment, any future agenda item, you can look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hands. Are there any suggestions for future agenda items? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Please go ahead and do so.
Thank you.
Moving to agenda 16. Previously announced, there is no closed session at this time. Moving to agenda 17. Board is adjourned. Thank you for attending today. Have a great afternoon.